Today I'm chatting with Nikki Reiter, a coach runner on Bio-mechanist. We're going to go over some tips for form and biomechanics to help you be a stronger and more efficient runner.
I like to talk about 3 first tips that beginner runners should really focus on, and they don't necessarily have to be in this order either. So we'll just talk about them and then we can talk about how we might integrate them as well. So the first one is talking about getting your foot to land underneath your body. So a lot of runners have heard about this idea of trying to get 180 strides per minute, or their cadence up to 180 times in 1 minute. And that's very fast. The elite really do that. And a recreational runner should be aiming probably for about 150 to 170 strides per minute. And even that, the focus on strides per minute isn't what we should be thinking about. We should be thinking about putting our foot underneath our body. So when we reach out in front of us, that's when we get that braking force, and it can cause some injury to the lower leg. So if we focus on bringing our leg in, we're not going to be able to put our foot out and have that jarring force. And the other concern people often think is, well, I have to land on my toes or on my midfoot. You can land underneath your body on your heel or on your midfoot or toe. The important part is to have it come and land under your body as opposed to out in front of your body.
Okay, so how do you cue people? How do you teach them? How do you get to that point?
Great question. So again, not focusing on what our stride rate is, but you should be a little bit aware of it. So instead of aiming for 180 strides per minute, what you can do is you'll go out for your run and you'll see how many times your foot hits the ground in 30 seconds. Pick one foot. And then you double that to find out what that time, what the strides are. And then you can increase that by about 5%. So you play around with this strides per minute, and that should be able to essentially get your foot coming back in a little bit faster. So there's 2 approaches here. You can think about increasing how fast your feet are moving, or you can think about moving and getting your foot underneath your body.
Okay, what about metronomes?
Oh goodness, that sounds complicated, but people run with their phone, right? Yeah. So absolutely, you could try doing something like that.
Sure, okay, what other form tips do you have?
So the next one is about your posture. So we want to run nice and tall, as opposed to a lot of runners tend to bend over at the waist, right? So what that does is it changes the way your body absorbs the shock from the ground. So if you're bent over, you're going to start getting the shock ending in your hips and in your hamstrings, whereas if you're nice and tall, you have your whole body to absorb that shock. So a cue that I like to give is to think of yourself as a puppet. So Malindi, can I pretend that you're a puppet? Yeah. So if I was just going to hold you up here, I'm going to pull you up nice and tall, and then I'm going to bring my strings forward. And so nice, very nice, you're bending over at the ankles. You don't want to bend over at the hips. Right. You want to bend right at the ankles, just like that.
You don't want to be sitting either, right? You
exactly.
want to have this in alignment.
Yeah,
okay.
and so to help reinforce this, we need to have very strong cores. And so that's not just your abs. Yeah. We're talking about your glutes. We're talking about your back, so you can stay nice and tall as you run.
Okay, so work with a strength coach, work with a physio to make sure you're on the right plan, that you've covered those bases. Yeah. You've got your hamstrings, your glutes, those are the big muscle groups. What about your feet? There are, a lot of ground contact there. There's a lot going on in all those muscles, tendons, bones in the foot. What can you do about those?
With your feet, they're not the single muscles that are going to propel you forward. So a lot of people like to, again, reach out in front to go faster. This is related to our first tip of getting your leg underneath your body. Instead, you want to be pushing off from behind. Okay. So the harder you push off from behind, you're going to be using your glutes, the faster that you'll go. So if you think of those sprinters who are super muscular, it's because they have the power to push back, so they move forward frontwards. It's that equal and opposite reaction, right? Yeah. So what's important though, when you do push from behind, is that you're pushing off just the last minute with your big toe. This way your body and your hips are going to stay aligned along the path that you want to run, and it stops you from twisting side to side. That's where a lot of people get injured, is that they end up pushing off maybe off the side of their toe, or just not purposely off the big toe.
Right.
And so that torsion, their body has to pull themselves back, and that's where a lot of hip and knee injuries really stem from.
So the big toe is very important.
It actually is.
Okay, good. So do you have any resources, any tips on how to make sure that your toe is activated and strong?
Yes, of course. There's something called toe yoga, actually.
wow.
There's probably many names for it. And what you're supposed to do is really focus on pushing on your big toe and lifting your smaller toes. So when you're putting the pressure on your foot, you're going to lift and alternate them.
Oh, wow. That takes some coordination.
It really does. You have to practice that. And what it does is it really engages your arch, and that's how your foot's meant to work, is using your arch to absorb that impact.
Okay.
So again, if you're pushing out in front, you're not going to have as much, you're going to have to wait till your body comes over top to push off your toe. But if you land under your body, you're just all set up, ready to go.
Okay. Does arch strength come into play then? You mentioned your arch. Should you be doing other things for your arches?
This will also strengthen your arches and
Okay.
give you that dexterity around
Okay.
them and purposefully use them as well.
Okay. Can I show you one that I've learned?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is what my physio taught me, because I was having problems of not purposely coming off my left side. My right side was good. My left side wasn't tracking properly. So I do a toe raise and then drop my heels, up, drop my heels, squat, up, drop my heels, where I'm really trying to use all my toes, teach them to all be on at the same time. And if you want to be really tricky, you do it opposite as well.
Great, and look how much your hips point forward and you're not twisting about.
Right,
Very important.
and that's key in running all the time, is that forward motion. We don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Any energy lost that way. How do you remember all of this at the same time?
You don't. Your body can't be doing all of these new things at the same time. So what I would recommend, first of all, is you pick one thing and then work with that. But maybe have a friend either watch you or even better videotape you, which I know a lot of people have trouble with. Even if you're the only one who ends up watching it, and pick which of those exercises or cues you might think will have the best impact. Because really, once you start working on one, your form changes, and you might actually come up with a lot of really good adaptations based on that first cue. So pick the one either you like the most or you think that you can do the most progress with.
Gotcha, okay. And then my final tip is just that know these tips and think of these cues occasionally, but don't obsess over them.
Absolutely.
If that becomes the only thing you're thinking about, then you tend to tense up, and you need to sometimes just remind yourself and then relax and let it go and let it come back and do kind of a check-in.
Yeah, and you stop having as much fun too. Sometimes running is for clearing your mind, and you can take a break. It doesn't always have to be about improving your form.
Right.
And after these 3 tips, if you take some time to work on the 3 of them over a span of months, you might be running really well, no injury, you're achieving your goals. Maybe you're all set. But if you do want to maybe work a little bit more on some goals, maybe you have a nagging injury, that's when you might want to consider working with another running coach or a biomechanist to get some feedback on your form.
So thanks so much, Nikki, for joining us today. We have this great Return to Run program and coming back from an injury program on Zwift that people can tune into, and these will be great cues for them to remember. And again, great to have you.
Yeah, it's great. It's fun.